Hi, I'm Edith Stoic, your space for raw conversations and life lessons. 4 habits that make people lose respect for you. Respect isn't something you're automatically given, it's something you earn. And just as you can build respect through integrity and reliability, you can just as easily lose it through bad habits. Today, we're looking at 4 toxic behaviors that can quietly erode your reputation and push people away. Nobody's perfect. I've struggled with some of these habits myself, and I've seen firsthand how they can damage relationships. But the good news, we can recognize them, change them, and rebuild the respect we may have lost. We'll also draw wisdom from Stoicism, a philosophy that teaches self-control, resilience, and the power of living with intention. It's not just about enduring challenges, it's about shaping our character and becoming someone others can trust and respect. So, let's get into it. First up, gossiping. The hidden cost of gossip. Gossiping is a habit that almost everyone engages in, yet few acknowledge the damage it causes. At first glance, it may seem harmless, just casual conversations about other people's lives. But beneath the surface, gossip erodes trust, damages reputations, and reflects more about the gossiper than the person being talked about. I know this firsthand because I was once trapped in this toxic cycle. In college, gossip was almost a bonding ritual among my friends and me. We would sit together for hours, sharing details about classmates, professors, and even strangers. It felt entertaining, like we were exchanging secrets that made us feel more connected. We convinced ourselves that it was harmless fun, but in reality, it was anything but. One incident in particular still lingers in my memory. There was a girl in our circle, let's call her Anna. She was quiet, intelligent, and didn't always fit in with the rest of us. One day, I overheard that she had a crush on someone who was considered way out of her league. Instead of keeping it to myself, I eagerly shared it with my friends, and soon, the whole group was laughing about it. What started as a private piece of information quickly became the subject of ridicule. When Anna found out, the pain on her face was undeniable. She didn't confront anyone. She simply withdrew from the group. She stopped attending gatherings, avoided eye contact in class, and eventually drifted away completely. At the time, I told myself it wasn't a big deal, but deep down, I knew I had played a role in hurting someone who had done nothing to deserve it. Years later, I found myself on the receiving end of gossip. At my first job, I confided in a colleague about a personal struggle I was facing. I had assumed my words were safe, spoken in confidence, but within days, I started noticing people whispering. When I entered the room, conversations would abruptly stop as I walked past. The trust I had placed in that one person had been shattered, and the discomfort of being the subject of speculation was unbearable. It was in that moment that I truly understood the weight of my past actions. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Keep silence for the most part, and speak only when you must, and then briefly." Stoicism teaches us to focus on our own character rather than meddling in the affairs of others. When we gossip, we're not just wasting time, we're actively damaging the trust and respect that form the foundation of our relationships. Words, once spoken, cannot be taken back. They leave scars that may not always be visible, but their impact can last a lifetime. Gossiping may offer temporary entertainment, but it comes at a cost. It diminishes our credibility and makes others question whether they can truly trust us. No one wants to be friends with someone who will turn their personal life into public conversation. In the end, those who gossip the most often find themselves isolated, victims of the very habit they once indulged in. I learned a valuable lesson through my mistakes. If something isn't yours to share, don't share it. The world is already full of noise. There is no need to add to it by spreading words that serve no purpose but to harm. Instead, we should focus on speaking with kindness, integrity, and discretion. Trust, once broken, is difficult to repair. And in life, it is far more rewarding to be known as someone who can be relied upon than someone who cannot be trusted. The power of reliability. Reliability is one of the most fundamental qualities that define a person's character, whether in personal relationships or professional settings. Being dependable is a sign of respect, integrity, and self-discipline. Yet, many people develop the habit of being unreliable without realizing the damage it causes. I know this firsthand because, at one point in my life, I was that person. In my early 20s, I had a bad habit of making commitments and then failing to follow through. I would agree to meet friends for dinner, only to cancel at the last minute. I would volunteer to help with projects, and then disappear when it was time to contribute. At the time, I thought it wasn't a big deal, After all, life gets busy and plans change, right? But I didn't see the impact my actions had on others. One experience changed my perspective completely. A close friend of mine, Rachel, had been planning her birthday party for weeks. She was excited, constantly talking about the details, where it would be, the decorations, the food. She made it clear that she really wanted me there. I promised I would go, but when the day arrived, I was tired from a long week and decided to skip it. I told myself I'd explain later, that she'd understand. What I didn't expect was the hurt in her voice when I finally reached out, hours after the party had ended. She wasn't angry, but she was deeply disappointed. She told me that it wasn't just about the party, it was about the fact that she couldn't rely on me. That conversation stuck with me. Over the next few months, I noticed that our friendship had changed. She stopped inviting me to things as often. She no longer confided in me the way she used to. The realization hit me. My unreliability had cost me someone I genuinely cared about. It wasn't just in my personal life, either. Early in my career, I had a similar problem. I would take on projects at work with enthusiasm, but fail to meet deadlines. I'd assure my team that I had things under control, only to deliver subpar results or miss deadlines entirely. At first, I thought I could charm my way out of it, making excuses and apologizing. But during a performance review, my manager was brutally honest with me. Your work is great when you actually do it, but no one knows if they can count on you, and that's a problem. That was a wake-up call. I realized that being unreliable wasn't just a bad habit. It was actively holding me back. People didn't trust me because I hadn't given them a reason to. I was damaging my own reputation, and unless I made a change, I would continue losing opportunities and relationships. So I decided to fix it. The first step was being honest with myself about what I could and couldn't commit to. Instead of overpromising, I started setting realistic expectations. If I agreed to do something, I made sure to follow through, even if it was inconvenient. And if I ever had to cancel, I communicated as early as possible and took responsibility for my commitments. Over time, I noticed a shift. Friends started trusting me again. At work, my colleagues no longer hesitated to rely on me. My reliability became one of my strongest assets rather than my biggest weakness. The Stoics believed in the importance of integrity and consistency. As Epictetus once said, if you wish to be good, first believe that you are bad. Acknowledging our flaws is the first step toward self-improvement. If you struggle with reliability, don't brush it off, fix it. Show up when you say you will. Follow through on your promises. Respect people's time as much as your own, because in the end, your reputation is built not on what you intend to do, but on what you actually do. The power of listening. Overcoming the habit of interrupting. Interrupting others may seem like a small, harmless habit, but in reality, it sends a strong message. What I have to say is more important than what you're saying. It makes people feel unheard, disrespected, and undervalued. Many people interrupt without realizing it, thinking they're being engaged, enthusiastic, or helpful. But the truth is, constantly cutting someone off in conversation damages trust and weakens relationships. I learned this the hard way. I used to interrupt people all the time, believing I was showing interest and adding value to conversations. But a few painful experiences forced me to rethink my approach. One of the first wake-up calls came during a team meeting at my previous job. We were brainstorming ideas for a big project, and I was eager to contribute. Every time someone started sharing their thoughts, I would jump in, either finishing their sentences or offering my own ideas before they had even completed theirs. I thought I was being proactive, but my coworkers saw it differently. Halfway through the meeting, my manager turned to me and said, "Let people finish their thoughts before you respond. You're not listening. You're just waiting for your turn to speak." That comment hit me hard. I had never considered that my interruptions might be disrespectful. But after the meeting, a colleague pulled me aside and added, "Honestly, it makes people feel like their ideas don't matter. You're smart, but it's frustrating when you don't let others finish." That conversation changed the way I saw my own behavior. I realized that interrupting wasn't just about bad manners. It was a sign of poor listening skills and a lack of self-awareness. A second, more personal experience reinforced this lesson. I was having dinner with a friend who was opening up about a difficult situation in his life. As he spoke, I felt the urge to relate to his experience, so I interrupted with my own story, thinking it would make him feel understood. But instead of appreciating my input, he looked at me and said, "Can I just finish my thought?" The disappointment in his voice made me realize my mistake. I had turned his moment into my moment. Instead of giving him space to express himself, I had made the conversation about me. That night, I understood something crucial. Real listening means making the other person feel heard, not just waiting for a chance to speak. The Stoic philosophers, like Seneca and Epictetus, emphasized the importance of patience and thoughtful conversation. They taught that wise people speak less and listen more, recognizing that true understanding comes not from asserting opinions, but from absorbing the perspectives of others. So how can we break the habit of interrupting? Here are a few simple but powerful techniques that helped me pause before speaking. When someone is talking, resist the urge to jump in immediately. A 1-second pause before responding ensures they have finished their thought. Practice active listening. Instead of thinking about what you'll say next, focus entirely on the speaker. Ask yourself, what is this person really trying to communicate? Use nonverbal cues, nodding, maintaining eye contact, and leaning slightly forward show that you are engaged. Without needing to interrupt, remind yourself that every voice matters. If you constantly interrupt, people may stop sharing their thoughts with you. Respecting their words means respecting them. Breaking the habit of interrupting isn't easy, but it's worth it. The next time you're in a conversation, remember, listening isn't just about being silent. It's about making others feel valued. When you truly listen, you strengthen your relationships, build trust, and show respect for those around you. The hidden cost of complaining and how to break free. We all complain from time to time. It's a natural way to express frustration. But what happens when complaining becomes a habit? Constant negativity can drain your energy, damage relationships, and create a toxic mindset that holds you back. While it might feel good in the moment, habitual complaining rarely leads to real solutions. Instead, it fosters a sense of helplessness and pushes people away. I used to be someone who complained about everything. If something didn't go my way, I would talk about it endlessly to friends, coworkers, and even strangers. I thought I was just being honest about my frustrations, but over time, I noticed a pattern. The more I complained, the worse I felt. Instead of solving problems, I was just amplifying them. One of my biggest wake-up calls came at work. I was in a job I disliked, and every day, I'd find new reasons to be unhappy. The workload was too heavy, management was unorganized, and I felt like I wasn't being appreciated. My coworkers initially listened and nodded in agreement. But soon, I noticed that conversations were growing shorter. I wasn't invited to group lunches as often, and people started avoiding me. Then, one day, a colleague pulled me aside and said something I'll never forget. "You complain a lot. Have you noticed that every conversation we have is about what's wrong? It's exhausting." That moment hit me like a punch to the gut. I had always seen myself as someone who was just venting, but in reality, I was pushing people away with my negativity. Why complaining pushes people away? Complaining might feel like a way to connect with others, but in reality, it has the opposite effect. Here's why. It drains energy. Constant negativity is mentally exhausting. People are naturally drawn to those who uplift them, not those who bring them down. It solves nothing. Complaining focuses on the problem, not the solution. Instead of making progress, it keeps you stuck in frustration. It changes how others see you. If you're always complaining, people will start to see you as someone who dwells on negativity rather than someone who takes action. The Stoics believed in focusing on what we can control and letting go of what we cannot. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, instead of complaining about how things should be, take action to improve what you can. How to break the habit of complaining. After that conversation with my coworker, I decided to change. Here's what helped me break free from the cycle of negativity. Practice gratitude. Instead of focusing on what's wrong, take a moment each day to recognize what's going right. Even in difficult situations, there's always something to appreciate. Reframe your mindset. When you feel the urge to complain, ask yourself, is this something I can change? If yes, take action. If no, accept it and move on. Limit exposure to negative conversations. Misery loves company. If you're constantly surrounded by people who complain, you're more likely to do the same. Try to spend more time with those who focus on solutions rather than problems. Turn complaints into action. Instead of saying, "This job sucks," try asking, "What can I do to improve my situation?" This small shift in thinking can make a huge difference. The power of positivity. As I started complaining less, I noticed a shift in my life. My relationships improved, my stress levels decreased, and I found myself becoming more productive Instead of wasting energy on frustration, I use that energy to create solutions. Breaking the habit of complaining doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means approaching them in a more constructive way. The next time you feel the urge to complain, pause and ask yourself, what can I do about this? If you make this small change, you'll not only gain the respect of others, you'll also create a more positive and fulfilling life for yourself. From complaints to solutions, a mindset shift. Complaining is easy, but it rarely solves anything. While venting occasionally is natural, constant negativity drains energy and pushes people away. I learned this the hard way when a close friend told me, I care about you, but being around you is exhausting. That wake-up call made me realize my habit wasn't helping. It was just making things worse. Instead of focusing on problems, I started looking for solutions. If work was frustrating, I asked, what can I do to improve this? If I felt undervalued, I communicated my needs instead of dwelling on resentment. The shift was life-changing. My relationships improved, stress decreased, and people responded more positively to me. Breaking the habit of complaining doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means facing them with action. By focusing on solutions, we create a more positive life and stronger relationships. If this resonated with you, take a moment to reflect, and if you found it helpful, like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, stay strong, stay stoic. If you found this video valuable, hit like to support the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss future content. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.